Okay, we're going to look at least common denominators today. In order to add or subtract these algebraic fractions, you have to have a common denominator. And it's a little bit more involved than finding the least common denominator of regular fractions. So we're going to take one whole lesson to just talk about least common denominators. So we're going to express two or more fractions with their least common denominator. We're not going to add or subtract anything. We're just going to express them. All right, so let's look at our first example. It says complete. We have 3/7 is equal to something over 35. So in order to go from 7 to 35, I would have to multiply by 5. So this would be 15 over 35. So if I was going to add or subtract two fractions and I had to have a common denominator, this might be one way that I would change this to get my common denominator. Example 2, complete this. So here, in order to get from 3a to 18a squared, I would have to multiply the 3 times 6, that'll give me 18, and then a times another a will give me a squared. Okay, so here I'm going to multiply by 6a, which is going to give me 48a. Okay, here we're starting to like slowly get into it. Think of that as x minus 5. So here's my x minus 5. And what I did was I multiplied it by x plus 1. So in order for this to be an equivalent fraction, I also have to multiply the top by x plus 1. Okay? See how we did that? I had x minus 5 and I multiplied it by x plus 1. So I have to multiply the 2 by x plus 1. So finding the least common denominator. Factor each denominator completely. Okay? Factor completely. Write any integral factor as a product of prime. So what an integral factor is this is just a number. An integral, it's kind of like integer. So the numbers get written as a product of prime numbers. Okay, which you don't really have to do because we can usually do the numbers in our head. Find the product of the greatest power of each factor occurring in the denominators. All right. So find the LCD of these fractions, okay? So normally what we would do, if we were to do prime factorization, we would say, well, 4 is 2 times 2, and 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. 2 times 3 is 6 times 5. And 45 is 3 times 3 times 5. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 5 is 45. And then we would say, okay, well, these are the same, and these are the same, and these are the same. Okay, so I would have 2 times 3 times 5, and then I would include the leftovers. So 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 times 2 is 60. And 60 times 3 is 180. So we would say our LCD is 180. Okay. That's using prime factorization. So it's the same process that we're going to do, except we're going to be using variable factors. Okay, so find the LCD of 3 over 6x minus 30 and 8 over 9x minus 45. So I'm not going to worry so much about the top numbers. What I need to do, though, is I need to factor the denominators. So if I factor this, I'm going to have 6x minus 30. If I factor that, it's 6 times x minus 5. And if I factor this, I'm going to factor out a 9, and it's going to be x minus 5. So what they have in common is the x minus 5. Okay, so they already have the x minus 5 in common. What they don't have in common is these. So I'm going to go ahead and write these out. 2 times 3. This would be 3 times 3. So 2 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so 18. So our LCD is going to be 18. That's the numbers, okay? So if we looked at just the 6 and the 9, we'd say, well, it's going to be 18. 18 times x minus 5. That's our least common denominator. Okay, so all I would have to do is multiply the first one fraction by 3 over 3 and the second fraction by 2 over 2. Okay, let's look at example 6 here. Rewrite these with their LCD. So again, I have to factor first. So here I'm going to factor, I can use X box here. And that's going to be 4 times 4. They're both going to be negative. And here I'm going to factor, I'm going to have 4 and 3, and they're both going to be negative. Okay, so what I do is I look and I say, well, if I were to list them out, I have these in common. Here's an extra. Here's an extra. So my LCD would be x minus 4 times x minus 4 times x minus 3. So here I would have to multiply the whole thing by an additional x minus 4, because I'm missing the x minus 4. So that I'd have another x minus 4 here, and x minus 4 here. This one I'm missing the x minus 3. Put it up front. Okay, so that's how I would rewrite those. Okay, then they would have the same denominator. I could add or subtract. All right, let's complete this. Now we have opposites here. I'm going to rewrite this one as -5 over x minus 2. And the reason I'm able to do that is because, remember, with a fraction, it doesn't matter where your negative sign is. So I pulled out a negative, okay, right here. I pulled that out. So that changed my signs so that I could have the same denominator. And all I did was move the negative up front. Okay, so that would give me a -5 here. Okay, so I'm just completing that. Now it says find the LCD. Okay, I don't have to rewrite these. I'm just looking for the LCD. So here my factors are x times x plus 1. Here I have x plus 1. Here I have x. So if I list them out, after a while, you're not going to have to list them out. Okay, because it'll make sense to you. So this has x and x plus 1. This has x plus 1. And this has x. So if you see, those are what I have in common. So my LCD is just going to be x times x plus 1. Here I don't have to do anything. Here I would just multiply the top and bottom by x. Here I would just multiply the top and bottom by x plus 1.